Black woman faces humiliation in boxing class until she knocks out an 80 kilograms fighter with one punch. It was an early Saturday morning when Maya Johnson stepped into the boxing gym for the first time. The air was thick with the smell of sweat and leather, a cacophony of gloves, hitting pads, and feet shuffling on the gym floor. Maya had always been athletic. She had run track in high school and spent her college years in the weight room. But boxing was a different beast. She had never tried it before. But after years of feeling like she was always being underestimated, she decided it was time to take a leap. Maya was a woman who had spent her whole life proving herself. As a black woman in a world where her voice was often overshadowed by others, she had learned to stay strong, to be resilient. But as she walked into that gym, she couldn't help but feel out of place. Most of the people inside were men, and the few women around were either far more experienced or younger than her. Maya had always carried a certain sense of confidence, but this time, she felt a small knot of insecurity form in her stomach. She was met by the coach, a burly man with tattoos covering his arms and a permanent scowl etched on his face. His name was Coach Vince, and he had a reputation for being tough but fair. He eyed her up and down, sizing her up as he extended a hand. "You here for the class?" he asked gruffly. Maya nodded, trying to mask the nerves in her voice. "Yeah, I'm looking to learn. Never boxed before." Coach Vince raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything else. He motioned for her to follow him. "All right, you're in for a workout. But just so you know, this is a serious class. We don't have time for anyone who can't keep up," he warned as he led her to a section of the gym with a few bags and fighters already warming up. Maya's heart skipped a beat. The intensity in the room was palpable. She had expected the typical workout class, but this was nothing like that. The fighters weren't just hitting pads, they were sparring, sweating, and grunting with every punch they threw. The floor was covered in rubber mats, and the sound of fists pounding against punching bags was like a drumbeat of aggression. Maya was assigned to a corner with another beginner, a wiry young man named Tom, who seemed more nervous than she was. He barely made eye contact as Coach Vin set them up for the warm-up, telling them to shadow box. Maya tried her best to imitate the movements she had seen others do, but it felt awkward. Her punches were slow, her footwork clumsy. She could feel the stares of the more experienced fighters, the ones who seemed like they were born in the ring. They watched her with a mix of amusement and judgment, as though her presence didn't belong. "Keep your hands up," Coach Vince barked at her walking by. "Your form is all wrong. You're telegraphing your punches. You'll get hit before you even land a shot." Maya's face flushed red. She nodded, trying to correct her stance, but her arms felt like lead. She hadn't expected to be humiliated so quickly. As she threw weak punches, she could hear the snickers of the men around her. Some were even rolling their eyes, and a few exchanged smug glances. She wanted to run out of the gym and never come back, but something inside her told her to keep going. She couldn't let these people break her. She had fought harder battles in life than this. The class continued, and things didn't get any easier. Every time Maya made a mistake, Coach Vince seemed to grow more impatient with her. His harsh critiques and cold tone made her feel like she wasn't good enough to be there. After an hour of relentless drills, Coach Vince pulled her aside and pointed to a man who was training on the opposite side of the gym. "You see him?" he asked, pointing to a tall, muscular guy who was wrapping his hands. "That's Jason. He's been boxing for years. If you can't even keep up with a beginner's workout, you'll never make it in this sport." Maya looked at Jason, who was easily at least 80 kilograms of muscle. He had the build of a fighter, wide shoulders, thick arms, and a confident swagger that made it clear he was no stranger to the gym. She felt a lump form in her throat. There was no way she could compete with someone like him. But Coach Vince didn't give her a chance to back out. "Get in the ring with him," he said, pointing to the boxing ring in the center of the gym. Maya froze. "What?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Get in the ring. You can't learn unless you spar. You'll never improve if you don't face someone who knows what they're doing." Maya didn't have the chance to protest, Before she knew it, she was standing across from Jason, who was stretching his neck, preparing for the sparring session. He shot her a condescending grin. "You sure you want to do this?" he asked with a raised eyebrow. Maya clenched her fists, trying to hide her nervousness. "I'm ready," she said, her voice firm. Coach Vince signaled to start the match, and the bell rang, echoing throughout the gym. Maya tried to move, but Jason's size and strength were overwhelming. He jabbed at her with ease, his punches coming fast and hard. She was out of her depth, struggling to defend herself, her gloves getting knocked aside with every punch. "Keep your guard up," Coach Vince shouted from the sidelines. "Move your feet." But Maya was too slow. Jason's punches came like a blur, each one landing with a thud against her gloves or her body. Her arms were starting to feel like they were made of stone, and she could feel the sweat pouring down her face. The humiliation of being overpowered by someone like Jason was too much. Her body felt like it was about to give up, and the crowd of gym-goers were watching her every move, their eyes filled with judgment. Then, in a moment of clarity, something inside Maya snapped. She had spent her life being told she wasn't enough, being underestimated because of her race, her gender, and her strength. She had been the one to prove everyone wrong, time and time again. And she wasn't going to let a moment like this break her. With a sudden burst of energy, Maya ducked under Jason's next punch, her body reacting instinctively. She planted her feet and threw a left hook with all the power she could muster. The punch landed square on Jason's jaw, and in that instant, time seemed to slow down. For a brief moment, there was complete silence in the gym, and then Jason crumpled to the floor, his legs buckling beneath him. Maya stood frozen, staring at him as he lay on the mat, dazed and shocked. The gym was eerily quiet except for the sound of Coach Vince shouting, "What the hell just happened?" Jason groaned and slowly got to his feet, wiping blood from his lip. He was visibly shaken. "What the hell, Maya?" he muttered, clearly stunned by what had just occurred. The gym was silent for a long moment before Coach Vince broke the stillness. All right, that's enough," he called, his voice a mixture of surprise and admiration. "Maya, that was impressive." Jason glared at Maya, but there was a flicker of respect in his eyes. "I didn't think you had it in you," he admitted, still catching his breath. Maya stood tall, her fists clenched at her sides, her chest rising and falling with adrenaline. She had done it. She had just knocked out an 80 kilograms fighter with one punch, a feat she would never have thought possible just hours earlier. But more than that, she had done it on her own terms, in the face of humiliation, in the face of everyone telling her she wasn't good enough. Coach Vince walked over, a rare smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "I guess I was wrong about you," he said, his tone softer now. "You've got heart, Maya. You'll go far if you stick with this." Maya didn't respond immediately. She was still catching her breath, but inside she was beaming. She had proven something to herself, something she had known all along. She was capable of so much more than anyone had ever given her credit for. As the gym slowly returned to its usual hum of activity, Maya knew that this was just the beginning. She wasn't going to let anyone, man or woman, black or white, define her potential. She was going to fight for it every step of the way.